Hello students, we are learning chapter number 8, reproduction in organisms, and this is video 3 of the chapter. Today we will learn about sexual reproduction. In this chapter we are having asexual as well as sexual, so we are learning sexual reproduction. What is sexual reproduction? It is a type of reproduction in which two different organisms are involved. One is male, another is female. So there is involvement of males and females for the process of reproduction so that the new generation can be produced. Now, why the sexual mode of reproduction? That is, why the sexual mode of reproduction is preferred, it is better than the asexual reproduction. We have seen that variation occurs in the sexual reproduction. Variation is not seen in the asexual reproduction, and when the variation if it is suitable to the given environment, that is if the environment changes and because of the variation present in the body of the organisms can adapt well with the changing environment, and there will be less chance of extinct of the organism can continue staying on the earth. That is the importance of variation for the sexual reproduction, and that this variation is not there in the asexual reproduction. Now see the next page, page number 134. We will see that in sexual reproduction we know that when the male gamete unite with the female gamete, then the zygote is formed, and gamete is a cell. So we must know that in our body there are two types of cells, somatic cell and reproductive cells. Now in the somatic cells 23 pairs of chromosomes are there, but in the reproductive cells only 23 chromosomes are there. So if suppose the male gamete having 23 chromosomes unite with the female gamete with the 23 chromosomes, then the zygote formed will be having 23 pairs of chromosomes. This way the number of chromosomes is maintained from generation to generation. And there are two types of the germ cells, one is male, another is female. So the male germ cell is the female germ cell is large, and it contains the food stored in it so that the child can develop from the stored food. And the female gamete is smaller and it is motile. It is motile means it can move. This is the difference between the male gamete and the female gamete. And let us see the topic sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Now flowering plants are called angiosperms. And in the flowering plants we know that these parts are there. This is called petal and the green part is called sepal. It is sepal. And this is a bisexual flower. We know that there are two types of flowers, unisexual and bisexual. Unisexual flower will be having both the male and the female reproductive parts. That is, the male reproductive part is called stamen and the female reproductive part is called carpel. In the unisexual flower, either stamen is present in the flower or carpel is present in the flower. So either the flower is a male flower or it is a female flower. But if it is a bisexual flower, see unisexual flower is papaya and watermelon. In this, the male and the female flowers are separate. And in the bisexual flower, the example is hibiscus and mustard. Hibiscus means shoe flower. The stamen and the carpel, that is male reproductive part and the female reproductive part, both of them are present in the same flower. So let us see that what happens in the reproduction. Now there are two parts in the reproduction. In the sexual, reproduction in flowering plant, there are two parts. One is pollination. First is pollination and then is fertilization. So one by one we have to look into the topics. First one is pollination. Pollination means for the sexual reproduction, when the male gamete fuses with the female gamete, then the zygote is formed. Zygote is the first stage of the child. So here is the picture of a bisexual flower where this one is carpel. The carpel, the top portion is called stigma, as you see the diagram, stigma. Then it extends into a tube-like portion called style, and that is swollen portion at the bottom of the carpel is called ovary. Inside the ovary, the ovules are there. The ovules are called egg cells or the female gametes. And these are the stamens. They are the male reproductive parts. The male reproductive parts, the top swollen portion is called anther, which contains the pollen grains. And then this is the extension of the stamen. First of all, the pollen grain from the anther has to be placed on the stigmatic surface of the carpel. So the transfer of the pollen grains from the stamen to the carpel is called pollination. Transfer of the pollen grains from the stamen to the carpel is called pollination. Now what happens in the and this pollination may be from the stamen of the same flower to the carpel of the same flower. So if the pollen grain is transferred inside the same flower between the two parts, then it is called self pollination. And if the pollen grain is transferred from the stamen of one flower to the carpel of the another flower, that is called cross pollination. And pollination is helped by air, wind, water and insects. They are the agents of pollination. Let us see what is fertilization. Fertilization means that when the pollen grain falls on is transferred to the stigmatic surface, then the pollen grain develops a pollen tube because of chemotropism, develops a pollen tube which grows through the style and reaches the ovary. Inside the ovary, the pollen grain unites with the ovule and form the zygote. Now ultimately the ovule turns into seed, developing a tough coat, and the ovary develops into a fruit. And then when this seed is the future plant which contains the embryo. Now what is embryo? When the pollen grain fuses with the ovule, the zygote is formed, and this zygote, if this is a zygote, that is the first stage of the formation of the seedling or child of the plant. So this zygote will undergo cell division. It will develop, that is undergo cell division several times, and lot of number of cells will be formed. And this structure with more number of cells is called embryo. And embryo develop into a seedling. This is how the reproduction takes place in the flowering plant. That's all in today's video.